boys. We are back at Legacy Stadium here at the Venetian and the Palazzo Resorts. I'm with my man Chuck Esposito.
Joe, how you doing today?
Doing great, Chuck. Doing great. Thank you for joining me once again.
My pleasure.
It's time to talk NFL as we do every single week. And we're going to hit 4 big games on the schedule, and we're going to start with a game that it's my personal favorite of the week because I think I need you to talk me out of why there won't be a ton of points scored in this game. We're talking about Philadelphia, 1-3, the disappointing Philadelphia Eagles at 3-1 Buffalo. Buffalo coming off a loss to Cincinnati. Philadelphia coming off yet another loss, which they completely dismantled themselves in the second half against San Francisco. The thing that stands out to me in this game is these are two teams that go nothing but over. Nothing but points scored. 7 of the 8 games that these two have combined for this year have gone over. Philadelphia, 10 of their last 11 on the road have gone over. Both defenses have struggled. Both offenses are capable of putting up a lot of points. When you look at these two teams, what stands out to you? Do you see Juan Castillo's defense for Philadelphia finally turning it around?
I see a shootout. I see both these teams being able to put a ton of points on the board. You look at the Bills. They were in a shootout with the Patriots. They were in a shootout with the Raiders. They can put points on the board. I think it's a much bigger game for Philly. Philly loses here. They go to 1-4, and they play Washington at Washington week 6. I mean, 1-5 is catastrophic for the dream team per se. But I got a great stat for you, Joe, that a lot of people don't realize with Michael Vick. Since Michael Vick became the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, he is 5-8. So, although he's put a lot of stats on the board and he's done well, he is 5-8 as a starter. This is a big test. I think Buffalo kind of had a letdown last week. Most people thought they'd come into this game 4-0. They're 3-1. If they lose, they're 3-2. Okay, but they're still much better than people thought.
Still overachieving.
Absolutely. If Philly loses and they go to 1-4, there's going to be a lot of problems in Philly going into week 6. So a much bigger game for the Eagles. I do think you'll see a lot of points here. We know that Buffalo can play from behind and put those points up. They did it against the Raiders. They did it against the Patriots. So I think there's going to be a lot of points here. I love the game. Look for a lot of Fred Jackson, a lot of Shady McCoy, and a lot of balls being thrown in the air.
Fred Jackson, probably the most underrated fantasy back in the league right now. The guy continues to produce. He continues to find the end zone, yet no one ever talks about it.
They talk about C.J. Spiller actually more than they talk about Fred Jackson, and they drafted Spiller thinking he would be kind of your quasi-Reggie Bush type player that could be on special teams, a third down back. He hasn't even seen the field the last 2 weeks. It's all Fred Jackson. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Remember, he had to fend off Marcel Lynch as well, and then C.J. Spiller. But I agree. I think he's a total stud for fantasy lovers, and look for him to have another big game here against the Philadelphia defense that probably couldn't stop me and you running the ball.
Those linebackers haven't stopped anyone this year. Tight ends produce against them, running back produce. Fred Jackson's a great start this week. Also at 1 o'clock, we move to the NFC South as a 3-1 New Orleans Saints travel to Carolina to take on a deceptively good 1-3 Panthers team led by Cam Newton, who continues to roll up yards, continues to roll up stats. The Panthers continue to backdoor everybody. They did it to the Bears last week. They did it in week 1. They came in late against the Cardinals. This is a team that's always in it. No matter what, they're always in the game. You take a look at this. The Saints are coming off a nice road win last week at Jacksonville. Back-to-back road games are always difficult. What do you see in this one?
You stole my thunder a little bit about the backdoor cover because I was going to say the same thing. Not only did they do it against Arizona and they did it against the Bears, they also did it against Green Bay. They've done it 3 times where they scored late to cover. I love Cam Newton. I was a non-believer. It's been unreal what he's done early in the season. You look at Steve Smith. I mean, I've always been a Steve Smith fan. The last couple of years, he had no one that could get him the ball. Cam's just unbelievable. If you're a fantasy lover, just talking about fantasy a little bit, not only do you get the passing, he's your goal line back. So you get, double duty there out of him. D'Angelo Williams,
second leading rusher among quarterbacks
Stewart,
right now.
are
4 rushing touchdowns.
Between the 20s, Stewart and Williams are good, but inside the 10, it's all Cam Newton. I think it's kind of a tough spot for Carolina. They played against the cover 2 last week with the Bears defense, which left a lot of soft spots out there. That's not the case with Greg Williams' defense with New Orleans. They're going to blitz a lot, put a lot of pressure on you. They're giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks and wideouts, but look for Cam to try to have another big game. He's going to be throwing a lot. A lot of it comes from behind. I think New Orleans just has too many weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Looks like Colston's back. They're going to get Chris Ivory back pretty soon, too. I mean, they are just loaded on the offensive side.
Do you see Carolina sticking in this game, or do you think New Orleans just has too much more?
Well, I mean, you look at Carolina, and they're never out of it, the way they throw. They haven't been back by that many points, but you may see another week, maybe the 4th time, that you actually get a back door with Carolina.
4:15, a showdown, a rematch of last year's a big playoff game in the AFC as the 2-2 New York Jets, trying to rebound from a disastrous performance against the Baltimore Ravens, traveled to New England to take on the 3-1 Patriots, their hated division rival. Tom Brady and the Pats coming off an impressive win at Oakland last week, a game some might thought might be difficult going to the West Coast. The offense stepped up, but they lost linebacker Gerard Mayo. He's going to be out for this one. The Jets, Mark Sanchez, he did more for Baltimore last week than he did for New York. How does New York get back in it for this one? Because you know New England is going to put the foot down.
Well, the question for me really is, are the Jets any good? I mean, they preached ground and pound. They can't run. They can't stop the run. So are they really any good at this point? They lose at Baltimore. If they lose here, they're 2-3. They had a lot of brash talk in the offseason. Rex Ryan, we're going to win the Super Bowl. I guarantee it. A lot of their players have been outspoken. They're just not any good right now. I think it's a much bigger game for the Jets than it is the Patriots. These two teams played twice last year in New England. If you remember, during the regular season, primetime game, I think the Patriots scored close to 50 points, had over 500 yards of total offense, right, and totally decimated the Jets. Then they played in the playoffs. Patriots were 14-2. Who won that game? But the Jets. So I'm anxious to see what Jet team will show up. Sanchez is the lowest rated passer as far as completion percentage than any quarterback in the league the last 2 years. He's going to get healthy against any team. It's got to be that Patriot defense that just gives up a ton of points. Again, I think you'll see a lot of points here, but a much bigger game with the Jets than it is the Patriots.
Interesting note, 3 of the last 4 games, 3-0-1, I believe. Actually, I'm on the wrong stat. 3-0-1 in the last 4 New England have all gone over. These two teams, when they get together, we know New England can score, but the Jets have been scoring at will in addition to that. So,
the playoff game, I believe, did go under, though. The regular season game was
28-21, I believe it was. So, yeah, true. That was the one that was 3-0-1. I think they pushed right on that one. But they do, when they get together, Sanchez generally can put some numbers up against these guys unless they get it going via the defense or they get it going via the ground game, which we saw last year with the block punt at the end of the half in the playoffs. That kind of swung all the momentum in that one. When you look at this at the end of the day, it's a big number for New England to cover. Do you see the Jets hanging close in this game? Because you got to figure they're going to get up for it. But how much of Rex Ryan's talk, when does he get to a point where the team just stops listening?
I heard an interesting quote from Rex Ryan. It said, "Believe me, I'm prepared week in and week out." But the question really is his team prepared week in and week out? And I just don't think they're that good at this point. They maybe, you don't win Super Bowls early on. We know that it's a team that stays the healthiest and has the swagger and is playing the best ball toward the end of the season. I think this is a major gut check game for the Jets. I think they have to come to play on both sides of the ball. He keeps preaching now, we're not going to throw it. We want to get back to ground and pound.
Let's see.
I'm just not sure if they can. I like Sean Green, but LT has actually played better than Sean Green the last 2 years. They've got Joe McKnight. Maybe they get him in the mix a little bit. They can't drop back and throw 40, 50 times and expect to beat the Patriots. They have to keep it close, and I think if they do, they stay within the numbers.
Sunday night, another playoff matchup as we move to a game last year that, you know, an Atlanta team that absolutely plays, they were unstoppable at home, yet here come the Green Bay Packers and absolutely dismantled them last season, 48-21, as the 4-0 Green Bay Packers head to Atlanta to take on a 2-2 Atlanta team suddenly underperforming. This is not what a lot of people expected. Barely got through that Seattle game last week. When you take a look at this, obviously the public's going to be all over Green Bay. Everyone loves the Packers. They're watching them blow out teams week after week. They just got done killing the Denver Broncos. What do you see here? Are you thinking shootout, or do you think we finally get some defense?
It's a huge game for the Falcons in Matty Ice. They are at home. We know how dominant they were at home last year. As you said, it's a rematch of that playoff game. Atlanta had the best record in the NFC. They were at home against the wild-card Green Bay Packers, gave up 48 points. They went out and got Julio Jones to compete in those type of games. And he looks to be the real deal. I think he's had over 100 yards the last 2 games receiving. Roddy White hasn't played as well. The thing that I worry about with Atlanta is they like to run the ball to set up the pass. Michael Turner over the last 3 games, he's averaging 2.3 yards per carry. He's had a couple of big runs mixed in, but outside of that, he's not the same back.
Do you think that might have something to do with the fact that 2 years ago they ran him into the ground?
Absolutely. I think 2 years ago he led the league in carries. Last year he was in the top 5. He's 29 and a half, and we know what happens to those running backs when they hit that 30. I mean, it is just a wall, and I really worry about, can they be that team that has to pass, pass, pass? They've got weapons in Gonzalez and White and Julio Jones. The that's not their bread and butter. It's being able to run the ball and set up the pass. I think it's a great game. I think it's a huge game for Atlanta at home. I think it's a gut check for them as well. They need a win here on Sunday night.
Can you underestimate the fact of how much their backs are against the wall? They got to keep pace with the Saints. They got to keep pace with the Tampa Bay team that continues to win. Is that kind of a motivating factor you see as being maybe the edge that ticks it towards Atlanta's favor in this one?
I think so. I mean, you look at them early on, and they struggled in Chicago on the road. They came away with a road victory in Seattle. They lost against Tampa Bay in Tampa. So it's really only their second home game. So I think if they can come away with a win here, I think they're okay. But it's a huge game. When the schedule came out, nobody would have envisioned them being this big of an underdog on a primetime game this early in the season.
On their turf.
On their turf, right. So I think it's a gut check game for them. There's a couple of games this week I think are real big games for certain teams, much bigger than their opponent. And I think this is a huge one for the Atlanta Falcons.
Chuck Esposito, good stuff as
Thanks,
always.
Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We're here from Legacy Stadium. Check back with us on Monday as we'll have a preview for the Bears-Lions game. But for now, enjoy the games, everybody.